Welcome once again to the New Media Lab. I am your host, Rob Southgate. Today, I have a very special guest. I have BJ Smith. He's a podcaster with a number of different shows, Marketing Group Therapy and Social Impact Show among them. Both fantastic shows. But that's not what we're really talking about today. Today, we're specifically focusing on equipment for podcasters. So if you're a blogger, this might not be the episode for you, but there are some gems in here, so I would give it a listen. Podcasters, this is a lot of information about microphones, headphones, mixers, all that kind of stuff. It's really great. It's something that we never really talk about, but everybody has questions about. So let's get started. BJ, thank you so much for joining me here on the New Media Lab. I am so excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
And so that people understand, a lot of the people I've interviewed so far are people I know, people I've podcasted with, or people that have reached out to me. This was a different situation. You and I are kind of meeting for the first time right now.
I'm the newbie.
Not for long, right?
Right.
I'm on a bunch of different forum groups on Facebook. And for those of you that are, whether you're blogging or video or podcasting, that is really one of the best uses of Facebook. Join these groups, get in there and be active, communicate.
No doubt.
I put a thing out here. I just said, quoting myself, hey, everyone, I have a show on New Media. Anyone out there know anything about gear? I'd love to have somebody come on and talk about it. You wrote right back. What was it, like a minute later?
Yeah, maybe.
Like you were watching it. And you sent me a link to a blog post you wrote. And it's all about sound and equipment, and I just loved it. So I had to have you on, man.
Well, thanks.
So before we jump into that, I don't know about you. I know you're a podcaster, but tell me about yourself. Tell me how you kind of got into this and what your background is.
Well, yeah. So I don't have a radio background or anything like that. I'm just a very detail-oriented person that is picky about the little things. And that kind of comes from my background and, I started out in web design. So I'm a marketing major.
Okay.
And some 20 some years ago. And I've been in digital marketing pretty much since, I think, 98, going back to 98. So, as my career advanced and progressed, I kind of got bored, I guess, of the typical environment. And started looking for, what is my next thing? Do I need to move to a new city, get a job at a larger company so I have more people that will work under me? I think I had just a few people under me in the last job. And I started looking around and saying, well, I need to beef up on my marketing. So I was listening to podcasts when I run instead of listening to music, which I traditionally did. And I was listening to Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Yeah, sure.
But she's a Facebook marketing guru. And she probably doesn't like the term guru, but and she had an episode that was talking about her business. And as I listened to it, I'm like, why is she talking about her business? I'm here to learn about Facebook. I don't understand why you're telling us how your business works. But something kind of subliminally clicked in the back of my head. And I probably listened to that episode 5 or 6 times, going back to it and saying, yeah, what she's doing is what I want. So from that point, I started making the trek to start my own company, to do some sort of consulting with marketing, and to lead that was going to be a podcast. So I had to do all the research involved with starting podcasts. My first podcast was called The Busy Marketer, and it's actually been transitioned into Marketing Group Therapy based on a segment that I had that seemed to be the most interesting to folks. So that particular podcast, Marketing Group Therapy, is all about talking with other marketers, finding out what works for them and what didn't work for them. And it's supposed to bring in that environment of, like, if you're at a conference and you're in the hallways and you're talking about your day and talking about what you're working on and what other people are, what they're working on, and what are you struggling with, and have they struggled with the same thing, and how did they come across the solution, or do you have a solution for them? And that transitioned into another show that I did with some of the people who were actually guests on my show. It was called Marketing Recap. It was a live show in 3 different time zones, and it was awesome and fun and crazy and a mess all at the same time.
All right.
We only did that for a few months, but it was so much fun while we did it. But and my most, I guess, recent technical podcast is called the Social Impact Show that I'm doing with somebody that I met at one of these conferences. His name is Jeff Sheehan. He's a marketer out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he had his own show back there. And I put a shout out to my network, and I said, I really want to do something that encourages other businesses to give back, to really take an active role in doing things for their community and for the earth and all that fun stuff. And so we came up with this concept, and I did a shout out, said, hey, look, I want a co-host. I want somebody to help me kind of lift the weight here. And he was the first one that said, yeah, I'm all about that. So we've had a good time doing that show. I'm in the process of making some tweaks on it right now. And, these shows have been kind of fun for me. And over the course of the past 10 months or so, I've really been making a transition from moving from the marketing consulting side to really focusing in on the podcasting side. And how can I do podcasting as a way to make a living? I've been contacted by Advertising Week, which is a huge conference in New York City that has about 95,000 attendees. And I did a podcast up there for those guys where we did 60 interviews in about 4 days. So 60 interviews in 4 days. And we were sponsored by iHeartMedia. So it's one of those things that was really awesome to be validated by a company, which is the largest media company in the country, in iHeartMedia.
Now, did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them for the sponsorship? Yeah, they reached out to you.
They came to me. So yeah, I was minding my own business on Twitter, and somebody said, hey, I like what you're doing. We like the way you sound. We like your content. We want to do something with you. We're not sure what yet. And then we started talking about it. And this was a project that they had been doing. So they said, hey, look, we want to do this. We've got to pass it by our sponsor. And the sponsor loved it. And they've actually contacted us to do more. And
that's great, BJ.
The iHeart folks have.
That's fantastic.
So that's one of my things is now I'm doing events. So I'm whenever there's a large enough event that could benefit from a podcast, it's a great way to kind of get out the word for the sponsors and get out a word for the people who are doing the presentations. So it gives them a little bit more exposure and lets people see their personalities. It's so much fun.
Wow, that is awesome, man.
Yeah. So all that, yes. And there is one other thing that I'm doing is
okay,
because I'm so busy. It is an event called Podability, and it is a podcast workshop that I'm hosting with one of my friends in my network in New York City coming up in April. And we've got 12 amazing speakers and 25 seats. So something I'm really looking forward to having.
All right. So one thing I'm going to say right here, this is for the listeners, but it's really, I'm directing you right now, BJ. You need to send me links to all these things, and I'll put them all in the show notes. That way, listeners can check out Podability. They can check out Marketing Group Therapy, Social Impact Show. I mean, the whole thing. I want to make sure people can access this because as somebody who is a geek about all of that stuff, this sounds fantastic to me. I'm so glad I joined this Facebook group because I had not encountered you yet. And now I have a feeling I'm going to be binging the Marketing Group Therapy as soon as we hang up.
There you go. Go for it.
So excellent. Well, all right. Boy, now you've cracked it open. We've got 80 different topics we could talk about. This is what happens. I want to focus on one, though. I want to try to bring it back. Like I interviewed Brian from ProfitCast, and what we talked about on the show is almost nothing that we talked about pre-show about that we were going to talk about.
Right.
So that happens. This time I'm going to try and steer it back because really, I think this is something that marketing, social media, all that stuff aside, what I do on this show is I try to focus on new media, podcasting, vlogging, blogging, anything that you could put in that category. And I know from podcasters, because of what our network is, we get a lot of questions about equipment, about how to get started. And I thought rather than me give my, one-dimensional view of it, I wanted to hear what other people said. And your article is great. You really broke this down really well. And I'm definitely going to put a link to this in the show notes as well. Let's start there.
Okay.
So one of the things you have on here, you say it's not difficult or expensive to start a podcast. And then you list out 6 basic things you need to do. The RSS feed, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to address that here. That's something that we've kind of talked about in the past on the show. Podcast hosting, same thing. I mean, it's just about doing the research. Editing software, I don't want to get into that. What I want to get into are microphones, headphones, mixers, computer, what you think a good mix is. So let's start with microphones. Okay. What is it you use? What are your thoughts on that?
All right, you're listening to me on an Audio Technica ATR 2100. It is about a $60 microphone. I've seen it as low as like $35. Depending on when you catch it.
Didn't Amazon just have a sale where they had them for $35?
Yeah, I saw Ray Ortega tweet that out one day and said, "This is amazing. You have to go get it." So
yeah, and I didn't. When I looked, it was $60 again.
Yeah, and I thought about going in there and buying a couple more just to have them as backups.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do because we do live events, and I thought, wouldn't this be great if we had like 4 mics, sitting there as backups for these live events? And of course, we don't now.
Yeah. Well, and I picked the ATR because honestly, it went back to the research that I was doing a while back, and I was listening to Pat Flynn. And he mentioned he actually had his own little here's how to set up a podcast video training series. And one of his videos, he went in there and he sampled all of these different microphones and read a script for each of these microphones. And some of the microphones that are actually more expensive than the ATR sounded terrible. And when it got down to the last couple, they had the ATR 2100, and then he had the Heil PR40, which is, I think, around a $340, $350 microphone.
Yeah.
And there was a difference, but it was a slight difference, And $60, $340, it really wasn't a hard decision. And the fact that the ATR has 2 interfaces in the back of it. So you can plug in a USB. So the USB, if you want to go directly into your computer, if you're into using your smartphone, on my iPhone, I can use BossJock or something like that to connect to my iPhone or my iPad, and I can plug the ATR 2100 into that. And you can also plug a XLR cable that goes in through a mixer to sort of give you a little bit more control, and it actually sounds a little bit nicer than the USB. And interestingly enough, and I've tried this out, you can use both at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it doesn't direct it one way or the other.
No. You can use both. For the marketing recap show, this was a live show that was on Google Hangouts. And I didn't like the audio that Google was recording for us. So what I would do is, and this was before I got a digital recorder, and would have been a lot easier to do then. But what I did is I had the XLR cable going in through my mixer that went back to my computer, which fed the audio to Google. And then I had the USB coming out of it that went into my iPad that was recording off of BossJock. So I had both of those recording at the same time. And basically it was a nightmare, but I would strip out the audio that Google recorded from our podcast, and then I would replace it with my own audio. Of course, I sounded a lot better than everybody else did, but I was the host. So
it's your show, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's funny because as somebody who does a lot of live events and that, we have kind of a janky setup that's similar to what you're talking about. I think that's one of the motivators for doing this episode is, for me personally, I'm always trying to figure out what's the best way. What are the different ways I can do it? And you end up piecing these things together. So like what you're talking about, it's like at the time that was probably awesome. But, there was probably somebody out there that went, wait a minute, for this $60 thing, you could have changed everything. This just happened to us 2 weeks ago, I think. We stream our live stuff on Meerkat and Periscope. Hate the sound quality. I mean, it was terrible. And I kept monkeying with it, trying to figure out what can I do here? And one of my podcast friends sent me a note and said, have you ever tried what is it, iPro? I can't remember the name of it. Oh no. But it plugs in. Oh no, iRig. It's iRig.
Okay.
Have you seen the iRig?
Yeah. I've Brian Fanzo, I think, uses a lot of that sort of stuff.
It's fantastic. I plug a microphone, an XLR mic, directly into that. Goes right into the top of my device, and boom! It has a gain on it. I couldn't believe the quality control. I mean, it was like night and day. And it's funny because that also motivated us to a second one, which I think you'll find amusing. So I got one iRig. I decided I didn't have a splitter that night. I'll just kind of figure it out. But I realized what a difference in sound quality. So we took a microphone and plugged it or pointed it directly into the speaker. And then we had it run back into the other thing, and the quality went way up. So now we're pulling the live sound off of a freestanding speaker. I thought it was pretty funny, and boy, quality went way up. And that's the key. I mean, we have a podcaster here who uses a GarageBand mic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a $10 microphone. When I heard it, I thought, I didn't know that's what it was. I thought I was like, it sounds okay. It's not great. It's not a PR40, but it sounded great. It's a $10 microphone. So, you can pretty much start with just about anything, but the key is, not having too much gain on it, not over modulating on it, and, being able to accept, I guess, if it's a little bit less. Now, I got to say, your ATR 2100 sounds really good right now.
Yeah. One of the reason I like the ATR so much, and there's a, I guess it's a newer version of it called the AT 2005, and it's basically the same mic. It's black, and the switch looks a little bit different, but it's basically the same mic, and it runs about $20 more. But either of these mics, the thing that's great about them is that you can start with just that. If you're going to buy one piece of equipment to start a podcast, and you've got a computer, buy one of these microphones, plug it right in, and it will grow with you.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing. So I didn't start with a mixer. There's no way. I had no idea how long I'd be doing this. And so it worked fine for a while. And then I was able to upgrade to a mixer setup and digital recorders and all this fun stuff. And the mic just came with me,
Okay. You've moved us to the next one, the mixer. Now, I have not added a mixer into what we do. Okay. I do know that it will improve sound quality. And I have podcasters here because we have close to 100 podcasters that work with us. And you've got all sorts of, as I said, we've got the GarageBand guy, all the way up to people that have, real equipment, have a PR40 and have, mixers and all sorts of stuff going on. For me personally, I've got a Blue Yeti, and I'm going directly into my Mac. That's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I manipulate the sound in editing, and I think I get a pretty decent sound out of that. But I am going to be adding a mixer soon. Do you feel that the mixer is a critical next step?
The next step. I think headphones are more important.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as we'll
skip that. We'll do the headphones after. So the next step after a good set of headphones would be a mixer.
Yeah, I do think that. I do think a mixer is probably a good idea, simply because you have a little more flexibility with it. If you're doing interviews, all the recording software that you have to have right now is not necessary, especially if you're mixing in a digital recorder with it at the same time.
Yeah.
The mixer lets me do a few other things. I can hear exactly what's going on. I know that I can hear what you're saying. I can hear what my mic is picking up all at the same time. And what's going on in the environment. I can bring in my iPad where I've got I mentioned Boss Jock before. I have Boss Jock plugged in there so I can play things out of the cart. So, intros, I can do a live intro when I'm talking to a guest to really give them that feeling of being part of the experience, even though a lot of times I'll go back and change it later. Uh, I don't know. It's a fun toy. How necessary is it? It does give you a little bit better sound. The XLR does help. Now you could use one of those the Scarlett, was it Scarlett 2i something or other? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that mic enhancer thing.
Yeah. I mean, something very simple like that.
I don't know if I use the right term, but that's useful. What it does.
Yeah. Well, and you can plug in multiple microphones to this, and it will have a USB that will go right into your computer, and you can record multiple people at a time, multiple inputs. And that's really the kind of the point of having the mixer is for the multiple inputs and being able to have more control live. So versus with, if I'm doing a call recording off of Skype, I don't really have any control over the audio quality that's coming from you until after I'm done. I see what I've got, and then I'll make the edits in the end. Versus, I can hear you. You're coming through my mixer right now, and I can make some adjustments so that you're sounding great, and that's less editing for me to do in the end.
Sure. Yeah, anything we can do to save a little bit on post is a good thing. What about brands or models for mixers? Anything that you gravitate towards?
Now, I will be perfectly honest with you. Mixers are not my strong point. What I wanted, I had a very specific need, is that I wanted to be able to do what's called a mix minus, so that I can bring my audio from the computer, so via Skype in our case, into my mixer, bring it back through my headphones and into my recording device. And I can also get my mic to go through there and put that back through to my recording device and back through the computer, minus your audio, because you don't want to hear yourself.
Right.
Because it'd be an odd echo. So I had that very specific requirement, and there were only a few, let's say, budget-friendly mixers that would do that. So I ended up going in there and buying an Alesis Multimix 8, which is able to do exactly what I want it to do. And it's small enough that I can take it on the road if I'm doing a gig somewhere and plug in up to 4 microphones and several other audio devices at the same time. So, as far as specifics, there are some that are recommended. Mackie and Behringer make really good high quality products. You're definitely looking, you're paying at least $200 if you're getting into something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a list of 3, so I can add those that were recommended to me by various podcasters. I'll add those at the end. But like, there's a Peavey for $140 that people have said, you know what, it does the job. But if you want the real thing, you get a Mackie.
Yeah. I heard a great podcaster who did some reviews on budget-friendly mixers recently, and he basically looked at it the same way that I was looking at it. Does it do a mix minus? What do the preamps sound like? How is the sound? Is it a good quality? And, is it really worth the money? And you have to look at it to say, what do I really want to get out of a mixer? Am I just trying to get multiple channels in? Am I just trying to improve my audio? Or do I want to do something a little bit more with it? And then you have to wrap your budget around that. Right.
And what did you end up going with? Which one?
The Alesis. So it's not on the list that I had in the Medium article, because it just is not produced anymore, unfortunately. So that's what I wanted. I knew that it did what I wanted. It was in the price range that I wanted. It was sub $200. I was able to go to eBay and source one from there.
You know what? There is an Alesis Multimix 8 USB FX mixer on Amazon right now.
Okay, I will say stay away from the FX. Okay?
Good. That's why I'm asking.
Yes. I forgot they still even make that. And that was part of my research as well, because I was like, all right, there's an FX, Multimix 8. I will pull that out, and that's what I'll use. But it doesn't have the alternate sends that you need to be able to do the mix minus. When you actually compare so there was the USB, the Firewire, and the USB 2. So those are 3 different versions. And then there was the USB FX, which is what you're finding now. The USB 1, the Firewire, and the USB 2 all can do the multi-mix. The mix minus, where, like I said, I can send my sound back to you, but not, minus your audio as well. So yeah, beware of the FX if that's what you want to do.
That's excellent advice. See, I'm really glad I pulled that one up, because that is current. It's only $130, and it was recommended to me, but I have a feeling they weren't thinking of what you're thinking of. Yeah. Once again, that PV, I believe, does do the mix minus, if I remember correctly. But now I feel like I'm going to have to go back and do some research on that too.
Mm-hmm.
So many things to research. I actually use the Yeti microphone because when I got into it, I was trying to put this together and quickly trying to figure it out. And I was buying a Mac, and they had the Yeti Blue sitting there, and I said, great, this will do it. And, in retrospect, it's great and everything, but it was so much more to get the XLR that I got the USB, which makes this, it's not going to work with these mixers.
Right.
Unfortunately.
And if you go back and listen to that video that I was talking about with Pat Flynn,
yeah,
he does the Yeti and the Blue Snowball, and as good as they can sound, they still don't sound as good to me as the Audio Technica mics.
I agree with you. I mean, it's great for what it is. If you have one, you're not hurting yourself. But
no.
If I was starting out, having the knowledge I have now, I would have not made this move. I would have gone with probably the $60 model that we were talking about in the beginning. What you're using, that Audio Technica is the way I would go.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wrote the article, because there's so many different things that will confuse people out there. There's so many different opinions, and I realize that mine is just another opinion. But if you're planning for growth, I think it's a great mic to start with.
Now, going back to microphones just one more time, you in your article here, I didn't notice it, and I might be wrong, but did you get into condenser versus non-condenser mics?
No, because for the most part, most people don't need to know that.
Okay, because that is something that when I've inquired out there, that's the first thing that comes up. I used to work in an electronics store, and it reminds me of the questions people used to ask me that were somewhat irrelevant, but it was always the first thing people ask. The first thing I always get asked, well, what about condenser mics? What about non-condenser mics? And I'm always like, wow, I don't know if it even matters. So you're saying it really...
Well, and then, it
matters, but you adjust to whichever way you go, right?
The difference is one is going to work really well in a studio environment where every sound is blocked off, and it's going to give you a really nice vocal presence. But the other is going to be more suitable for most everybody else's environment. So, the mics like the Audio Technica, your Yeti, those types of mics are meant for, I guess, the more average person.
Okay.
It's not going to be as sensitive to a non-perfect environment.
Would you say the PR40 is more for that very sensitive environment, or is that more of an everyday also?
So. I think the PR40 works well in most environments that I've seen it in.
Yeah, I thought so too. I just wanted to see what you'd say about it, because I'm not the greatest gear guy. I know a fair amount, but I'm always asking questions, and I wanted to see if you would say like, oh yeah, no, you're an idiot. You want to go with this? Oh, okay. So let's do headphones.
Okay.
This is another big one. This is something, when I said go next, you were right. Really, the headphones, when you buy the microphone, get yourself some headphones. What are your thoughts on the headphones? Do you like,
thoughts,
is it more preference?
Yes,
or
I have certain preferences. So I'm interested to see what you think about this. But from my experience, if I'm starting out, I do not have a mixer. If I don't have a way to get the audio that my microphone is picking up back into my headphones, then I'm just going to use earbuds. I started out with my mic plugged in the USB into my computer with my earbuds that came with my iPhone, right?
Okay.
And most people would be shocked by that, but that'll do fine, because really all you're doing is hearing what your guest is doing, okay? Now, editing is a little bit different story, but if my goal is to hear what you're saying so I can have a conversation with you, then the earbuds will do just fine. The studio headphones are a nice to have, and if you have a mixer, you definitely want to have those. But the problem that I found is I got my studio headphones before I bought my mixer. Now, it was within a few weeks of each other, but I attempted to do a podcast with studio headphones on where my mic was going into my computer and not back into my headphones. And I couldn't hear myself. It's almost like, ducking your head underwater and trying to speak. Everything's muffled. You don't know how loud you're talking. You don't know exactly what's coming out of your mouth because the headphones do such a good job of closing out all the sounds around you that it's very awkward. You miss out on anything that's happening around you. Like that trash truck that went by earlier. If I was just using my headphones and I did not hear what was going into my mic, I probably would not have known that trash truck was there. You would have heard it because it's coming through the mic, but I wouldn't have.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So in my mind, if you don't have a way as you're recording to get your audio from your microphone back to your headphones, then just use the earbuds. Save the studio headphones for when you're doing the editing.
I love what you said there because it also it's another topic that comes up a lot around here when I'm talking to other podcasters. I am almost the opposite of you.
Oh, really?
I don't want my microphone. I don't want to hear my microphone. I find it way too distracting. Even if there's no delay or anything, I prefer to cut that completely out. And I only want to hear my guest. And if it's just me talking into the mic, once again, I don't want to hear myself. I'll listen back in editing. Now, I don't find earbuds comfortable to do this with, although I use earbuds all day when I'm listening to the 800 podcasts I listen to, but I don't use really good studio headphones. So like what I'm using right now are some, cheap $10 headphones, but they cover my ear. I can still hear the environment around me. It's not like those studio that just block everything out. But when I'm editing, you're right, man. If you're editing your stuff, getting a good pair of studio headphones makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, there are some other headphones out there. Just because you have a $300 pair of Beats or whatever your preference is, doesn't mean that that's a studio headphone.
No,
and that's something that I think a lot of folks need to understand as well.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when we started, I had people. This is going to talk about the opposite of what I really think. Everyone was saying, "Oh man, you got to get some Bose headphones for that because those have the best sound." I'm like, no, they don't, and they're expensive for what you're getting. And I found that my cheaper, I just got some Sonys. I want to say they were around $40, somewhere in there, $50 maybe. They sounded amazing, and they did the job really well. I think the best thing to do is go to an audio store. Don't go to Target or Best Buy to buy them. Go to an audio store, talk to the people there, and find out what's a good studio headphone that's not going to break the bank.
One of the things that you have to really pay attention to is called noise leak. And if you have a subpar set of headphones, what will happen is the audio that you're hearing in the headphones can make its way back out to the environment and into your microphone.
Yes.
And cause an echo effect, which is really nasty.
Which the headphones that came with my iPhone, those earbuds that came with the iPhone, not the new ones, but the old ones, man, that had that leak all over the place. It was terrible.
Is it before they made the pointy ones?
Yes. And it would sound like literally like there was an echo, but it was a distorted echo coming back if you ever use those earbuds. So those went out the window after the first attempt.
Yeah. I guess I should, I have my iPhone is old compared to a lot of them today, but it's a 5C. So it does have at least the newer style earbuds that are pointed that go more, direct the sound more into the ear than the old school ones. I have an iPod that had the earbuds like you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, yeah. When we got our 6s this year, and I got that new style, I've been busting on those, Apple headphones for a while. I didn't realize they had done a redesign. So when I got the new ones, I went, "Oh, finally, they've done something right." Because man, that last iteration that I had was awful. I wouldn't suggest that for even casual listening to anything. So what are you using for studio headphones?
I'm probably using the exact same thing you are. I have a set of Sony earbuds. I'm sorry, earbuds. I'm still on the Apple thing. I have a set of Sony Studio headphones. They are, what are they called? Like MDR 7502, I believe. It's around a $40 headphone.
Yeah, I think that's what I've got.
It's nice, budget friendly. It's great.
Yeah, they're and they sound wonderful. And once again, for editing, there's nothing like having a good set of studio headphones. But for when I'm broadcasting, I prefer these, $10 ones I'm using.
Right.
Unless I'm the guy in your position where I'm on the other end of the interview.
Right.
What didn't we talk about? Now, go ahead.
No. The only other thing that I think is interesting, interesting piece of equipment, a nice piece of equipment to have would be a digital recorder.
Yes. Now, what do you use for that?
I have a Zoom H4n, which is now an older model, but last I checked, it was around $200. The newer versions, the H5 is closer to $300. But it's great. It has an XLR and a 1/4 inch input, or two of each. So I can plug my mic directly into the recorder if I want to. So if I want to do a roving reporter style thing, I can grab my mic handheld, plug it directly into the recorder, go out in the field and walk around with it. Or I can plug in from my mixer using 1/4 inch. And typically what I do is I'll put the audio that's coming in, say Rob's voice here, put that on the right channel, have my audio on the left channel, and plug the left and right into it. So when I pull it into my editing software, I can split the channels apart to have two separate tracks. And it gives me a better recording. To me, it actually sounds a little bit better than what I get from recording directly into the computer itself. Definitely sounds better than recording from software like Call Recorder.
Right. Yeah, agreed. In fact, it's another smart move to have that in between so that you're getting a second recording in case one of your recordings fails too. That's what made me start doing it. And I was finding the same thing, that the recording quality off of mine, I'm using a Roland RO5, which is definitely older. Yeah. But yeah, it's got a real nice sound to it, nice and rich. It doesn't sound electric, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, but you like the Zoom. I've had people mention the Zoom and then the Tascam. There's a handy recorder that they have. Mm-hmm. Now, do you find that the microphones on that Zoom are of a high quality, or do you suggest doing the roving reporter thing?
I have never used the microphones that are actually built into the Zoom.
Really?
Yeah. Now I've listened to. There was one. He's a podcaster who also does a lot of video work, and he hooked the Zoom to a boom, so it was basically above his head, and he had another mic on the camera. So he was recording a video using both the Zoom and the mic, and he basically blended the sounds together, and it made an amazingly rich audio track for that video that he created. Oh, you might have to send me a link. I'd like to hear that. Sure. The Zoom's been very handy for me. I've used it on the road. I've used it here in the studio. A lot of times it's very helpful for just tracking when I'm doing script work. Just sit down with it, and I don't have to worry about the computer unless I'm using the script on the computer. I will just record it straight into the Zoom, pull out the flash card, and pop it into my Mac, and I'm good to go. Yeah, very good. Well, I think from an equipment standpoint, we've exhausted this. Yeah. I think we've done enough. At least it gives people an idea of what to look for. Like even just in the conversation, as I was looking through Amazon, when I looked up that mixer, the things we talked about were bringing up other things that were like, oh, this would be worth exploring a little bit. But I think we've definitely led people down a path. I urge everybody to check out your other podcast. I was also looking at that while we were talking. I am all over this marketing group therapy. I think it's going to be a fantastic show. And your social impact show sounds wonderful too. So in the future, I would love to have you back on to talk about those. Sure, absolutely. Excellent. Those shows are in transition. I have fallen the way of the high-end podcast producers, and I've fallen in love with the styles of Gimlet and WNYC and This American Life. And so I have started putting a little different spin on my episodes, and you'll hear those in the last few episodes of both of those shows. And that's just me, doing it all myself and not having a team. So interested to get some feedback on that.
Well, I am excited to listen to those. And, BJ, once again, thank you so much. Can you give your social media, give people a way to get in touch with you, and just roll through your podcast one more time? I know we'll put them in the show notes, but I know when I'm listening, I like to hear it at the end also, because I very often will immediately end the episode and go right to whatever the person suggested. So let's get social media out there and ways to contact you.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter. That's usually where I hang out, at BJ Smith Strategy. And that goes back to my marketing days. I'm also on Facebook. I have a Facebook page that I don't really update because, who actually looks at that stuff. So you'll find me floating around in the podcasting groups, I'm sure. Those are probably the best ways to get up with me. You can go to my website. It's bjsmith.co. That's not a com. It's .co. And I've got most of my podcast stuff on there as well.
Wonderful.
Also, go check out Podability at podability.com, especially if you're in the New York area. It's going to be held in April at Rise New York in Manhattan, a really cool tech incubator space. We have 12 incredible instructors and only 25 seats, so attendees really get that classroom-style interaction. I made a promo code for your listeners. So if they use New Media Lab, all one word and lowercase, New Media Lab, they'll get $100 off the ticket price.
Wonderful. What a great offer. And once again, as you were speaking, I was going through the Podability webpage, and it looks awesome. So I urge anybody listening, jump on this. It's a great deal, and this looks like a great event. I wish you all the luck in the world with this. It looks awesome.
I appreciate it, Rob. Thanks.
Thanks, BJ. I hope everybody got something out of that. I know I sure did. If you have questions for BJ or myself, please contact me at southgatemediagroup@gmail.com, or you can go to our Facebook page, Southgate Media Group, or you can contact me via Twitter at @rsouthgate. I'll be sure to pass it along to BJ, and maybe we'll even have him on for a question segment. A couple things I want to bring up. On Mondays now, we've started adding a new show to this feed called Social Media Mondays with Lilith Hellfire, where we talk about social media apps and news and kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it. If you have questions for that, things you want to highlight, things you want us to talk about, please write in with that also, and we'll be sure to address those. I really hope everyone's getting a lot out of this. So far, the response has been fantastic. Until next time, everybody, keep creating.